Not with our show, you can't. Right, we're going to go to Samoa next. I thought this piece was interesting for pondering and topical debate. And it's kind of new to me. It's probably new to a lot of people who listen to this show. But it says the binary gender system in Western society is far from universally accepted. Indeed, the Western culture, backed by jackass think tanks and word salad liberals, goes some way to muddying the waters of what a gender is these days, when all it requires is some common sense thinking. But those people are incapable of defining anything, because these people are moronically stupid, and I think they're being clever, coming up with differing word salad definitions for 2+1 genders. But far from being clever, I would describe their levels as socially, morally, and spiritually bankrupt. They are like computer codes, spitting out random words and numbers and thinking it makes some sort of sense. Well, in one way it does. It's called nonsense. Now, on the Polynesian island of Samoa near Fiji, Fa'afafines and Fa'afatamas are widely regarded as third and fourth genders alongside male and female. So what are Fa'afafines and Fa'afatamas? See how far I get, doesn't it? I've got to repeat that at least 12 times before I start stumbling on it. The third and fourth genders of Fa'afafine and Fa'afatama have always existed within Samoan society, and when translated literally they mean in the manner of women, Fa'afafine, and in the manner of man, Fa'afatama. And these genders are fluid and move between the traditional world of men and women. Now, Fa'afafines and Fa'afatamas have specific roles in Samoan society, in an interesting contrast to transgenderism in Western society, which is yet to be widely accepted. So the question was, have there always been 4 genders in Samoan culture? And the recognition of these genders is not a recent occurrence. Pre-Christian Samoans accepted and acknowledged that every individual, man or woman, had a separate role in society. Hence, it is still acceptable for a male child to be feminine, for example. Now, Samoan boys who display marked effeminate behaviour in childhood are recognised to be Fa'afafines and are fully accepted within their families and society. In the same way, girls who exhibit more masculine tendencies are accepted as Fa'afatamas. And these genders tend to care for the elderly in society and educate people about sex, which is a taboo subject for men and women to discuss in public. Now, they have a dance that is performed called the Taupou, Taupou, and this is one of the lasting Samoan traditions preserved by Fa'afafines and Fa'afatamas. And the Taupou is a ceremonial host, usually chosen by the village high chief. And during a pageant, one from each group is chosen to take on the role of the Taupou because of their gender-fluid nature, which allows them to dance in a graceful and feminine manner and to use sexual comedy to highlight taboo subjects. Now, Taupou wear specific clothing, usually a toga, which is wrapped around the body alongside an ula nifo, which is a whale tooth necklace, usually reserved for chiefs and their offspring. Now, today they also carry a nifo oti, a large club modelled on a cane whaling knife. So the question was, how does this compare to Western gender categories? But it's difficult to classify the Samoan genders in Western cultural terms, they said. These societies often misuse or do not fully understand categories such as transgender, homosexual and transvestite, all of which were created to classify males and females. Now the Samoans reject many of these terms, and Fa'afafines and Fa'afatamas identify as separate genders, and they cannot be termed homosexual, as in addition to having a separate gender identity, they have a varied sex life which may be with another man, woman, Fa'afafine, or Fa'afatama. And within Samoan society, tolerance of all individuals and their likes, dislikes and choices is very important, and children are not pushed to conform to particular gender roles in the same way that Western children generally are. So if you wish to learn more about Fa'afafines and Fa'afatamas, there's a book, The Memoirs of a Samoan Catholic and Fa'afafine, which is a valuable read, it is said, for better understanding of Fa'afafine life in the Samoan culture. And it tells the story of Vanessa, a Fa'afafine born to Catholic missionary parents, and his upbringing in the American Samoan territory of the United States, which is close to Samoa. And during these years, he outlined his struggles to come to terms with his sexuality and gender, and the ways in which he contributed to society. Now, there's also another book called Samoan Queer Lives by Dan Taulopapa McMullen, who himself is a Fa'afafine, and Yuki Kahara, which contains autobiographical stories from the 1940s to today's Fa'afafines. Very interesting, I thought. It's different. And I have no issue with people choosing their differing sexuality. In fact, quite frankly, it's no one else's business. But what I do have issues with is people putting it in your face and creating word salad labels for each other, and then using that as an agenda to divide the people. The Samoans are not divided. Everyone is happy with it. But the real issue in Western society and sexuality lies within the church itself. It is they who created division within the people over sexuality and its varying forms. Whether that be homosexuality, pedophilia, or even bestiality, all of which is mentioned in the Bible. What a holy book that is, not? Yet these same dividers of the people engage in all those acts and more. And it is the greatest height of hypocrisy on this planet. A recently partially declassified British intelligence document, WD-199, confirms, and we've said this many times in our show before, that Osama bin Laden, aka USA CIA employee Tim Osman, died of kidney failure in the mountains of Tora Bora near the Afghanistan-Pakistan-Chinese border in December of 2001. Now, what I didn't know is the late Tim Osman, aka Osama bin Laden, was not chucked into the ocean as Obama and Clinton and the other band of psychopaths reported. He is currently buried inside the People's Republic of China. And what the document confirms was details of how Osama bin Laden illegally signed over control of the US national security proprietary accounts to representatives of the US State Department who were present at the CIA Dubai hospital where bin Laden was in early December of 2001 before he was flown to Tora Bora and soon after died. The CIA have a hospital in Dubai. Oh my. And what are the coincidences of Tim Osman, the CIA operative, attending there? Remember the picture? Some of you may not. I do. Of Rumsfeld next to the hospital bed with bin Laden. Now you know why. And the reason being was there was these national security proprietary accounts tied to Osama bin Laden were frozen in September of 2001 under the terms of the UN Constitutional Patriot Act, which basically gave Bush and the conspiratorial Federal Reserve and its then chairman Alan Greenspan emergency control over the US Treasury. The question is which one, because there's 7 versions of the US Treasury, as Heather Giraffe found out. She went after the wrong one. And these funds have been used in various illegal trading programs on offshore trading platforms in Pakistan and India for over 8 years. And it should come as no surprise that the internet gossip columnist Christopher Story, who was later involved in the Russiagate, remember, was trying to commingle the funds under the trusteeship of Ambassador Leo Wanta, who was part of the Wanta-Reagan-Mitterrand protocols with the funds that are tied to a financial dispute between the former White House occupant George W. Bush and also the Queen of England. And it also revealed that the US Treasury investigators have absolute proof that the noted CIA proprietary account, Marvelous Investment Limited, was hijacked from the administrative control of the American patriot, I wouldn't call him now, Ambassador Leo Wanta, when noted East German DVD agent and Hillary Clinton confidant Eva Tlaib aka Tlaib aka Talikai forged Wanta's signature. This operation had the approval of both Hillary Clinton and the then Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney and known neo-Nazi East German DVD agent Colonel Dana Wilcox. Now, the stolen funds from MIL were then used to replace stolen funds from the known CIA proprietary account Delmarva Timber Trust. Now, it was Colonel Dana Wilcox himself, I thought it was a woman, that originally looted funds from the Delmarva Timber Trust on the order of his handler, George Herbert Walker Bush. And these funds tied to Delmarva Timber Trust were used to finance alleged Al-Qaeda, aka the Hamburg German terrorist cell codenamed Becker, through the noted German Deutsche Bank. Oops. For those of you who are on the internet around that time, there was lots of VK Durhams and all kinds of other claiming control of the accounts. Now, what I understand is Wanta is CIA too, for the start, as many in the alt media connected to funds were connected to that group. Anna von Reitz, Drake, Neil Keenan, Benjamin Fulford, David Wilcock. It was all discussing these funds. And the Queen of England, who gets blamed for a lot, and to be quite honest, she's not exactly immune to some of the skullduggery that's gone on around the world. But they stiffed her over and stole all of her gold, which maybe shouldn't have been given to her anyway, because it should belong to the people. But this is what goes on with these trust accounts. Everyone's fighting each other over control of the trust. But Wanta was at Langley too, and he got sold out by Bush and Reagan and ended up in jail on false charges. It's a bit like that guy who we did a piece, I think it was last year, Marion Horn. It's the same funds. They all know the funds are there, but they're being blocked. Final piece before we go into some fairly interesting pieces. This sounds like something straight out of science fiction. And the two partners in crime are involved again. The US and Israel researchers say they have created 9 different mini-human organs on a chip that will pave the way for researchers to test out drugs on humans. Not only that, the researchers also managed to connect the 9 organs on a chip they have developed, including a brain on a chip, a heart on a chip, and a liver on a chip, creating what they call a mini-human on a chip. And 2 studies by researchers in Tel Aviv University and, no surprise, Harvard University on the subject were published in the journal Nature Biomedical Engineering on Monday. What concerns me is the use of the word human to describe a person has increased dramatically over the last few years, like the word hybrid. Why even reference the use of that word? And the only logical and common sense reason for using that term is if those using it are not. Now, organs on a chip, you all think it's all so new, was first developed in 2010. I would go back another 30 years minimum, at Harvard University. And then scientists took cells, remember the Dolly the sheep stem cells and all that, from a specific human organ, heart, brain, kidney and lung, and used tissue engineering techniques, CRISPR, to put them in a plastic cartridge, or the so-called chip. Now, despite the use of the term chip, which often refers to microchips, no computer parts are involved here, according to them anyway. And what is new in the 2 studies published on Monday is the fact that researchers have now managed to link up the various organs and have proven that these can react to drugs in the same way as human organs would in a clinical trial, according to Dr. Ben Maus of Tel Aviv University's Department of Biomedical Engineering and Segal School of Neuroscience in an interview this week with the Times of Israel. And they said, when developing drugs, researchers try them out first on rodents and only then, if successful, on humans. But some 60 to 90% of the drugs that are successful in rodents fail in humans. (60 to 90% of all drugs fail. Just saying. And he said, this makes the process of drug development a very long and expensive, he said. Really. And he said, ideally, one would want to cut out the rodent stage and get to human testing directly for quicker results. These people are just psychopaths. So you kill humans and not the rodents. Nice non-thinking that. But then the authorities out of Israel were never known for their compassion for non-Jews or humans in general, were they? And he said that, of course, is impossible, he said, until the two new studies. A team of, remember the piece last week? 57 scientists at Tel Aviv University. What a coincidence that is. For those of you who remember the hybrid piece of 57 last week. Tel Aviv University and Harvard and other research entities and drug developers worked for 7 years on a project to develop what they call a functioning, comprehensive, multi-organ-on-a-chip platform that reacts to drugs just as real humans would react to them in a clinical setting. And he said, we created a human model that is not a human being, said Maus, M-A-O-Z, who co-authored the studies on the subject with Professor Donald Ingber, the founding director of Harvard University's Wyss Institute for Biologically Inspired Engineering. Inga is born in and born to, just saying. And with the Wyss Institute Professor Kevin Kit Parker. Now the scientists did this by taking human cells through tissue engineering, managed to mimic the functionality of the organ from which the cells were taken, like the liver or the heart, within a plastic cartridge that is the size of a USB flash drive. And it says the kidney acts as a filter and the heart acts as a pump in the body. So the researchers managed to tissue engineer the human kidney cells to work as a filter within the plastic cartridge, creating a kidney on a chip, he explained, and likewise for the heart. Have you got your MeWe vomit gifs ready? And the scientists managed to make the human heart cells contract within the cartridge, creating a heart on a chip. And the same procedure was performed on other organs and parts. The liver, the brain, the blood-brain barrier, you know, the one that gets lanced by the PCR test, the lung and the bone marrow, skin and the intestine. Now, the scientists created a so-called interrogator, a robotic liquid transfer device to link individual organ chips with each other in a way that mimics the flow of blood between organs in the human body. The interrogator. We created a unique machine that connects between the 9 organs, the brain, the lung, the bone marrow, and others, like a Lego, to create a mini human on a chip, Mose said. The linking system they created was tested successfully for at least 3 weeks, according to the Tel Aviv University, and the researchers then tested their organs on a chip with 2 drugs, a drug to combat intestine inflammation and a cancer drug. And their study showed that when the drugs were injected into the new system, the organs on a chip reacted and responded to the medications just as real human organs did in clinical trials with the drugs. And he said, we were able to create 9 unique human organs on a chip and connect between them and show that what you put in the system is comparable to human clinical data. And he said to get to this point was not easy. There were many challenges on the way that had to be overcome. For example, real human organs live off oxygen supplied to them by the human blood. So the researchers had to develop a way to feed their cells in a chip and devised an artificial blood made up of different chemicals, minerals, vitamins and hormones and other components that fed the cells in the chip. Also, whereas in a human organ there are billions of cells, the organ on a chip just has thousands of cells, so the researchers had to develop computational models to overcome the size problem and ensure that the cells function like those in a real organ, even while on the chip. So what now? He said, there are millions of directions we can take this. Indeed, and few that are beneficial to the people, I might add. And he said, hopefully one day people will be able to use this to test drugs instead of animal models, serving as an alternative to animal experiments and cutting back on their suffering. Since when have they cared about animals or humans for that matter? Another application could be to use the system to create personalized mini organs on a chip. Personalized mini organs on a chip. Each person with their own cells and organs to test how they would react to a particular drug. We could create a mini me on a chip, and this would help to save time and the pain of experiments. Now, was their interest in is saving money? He mentioned that a few paragraphs ago. And the dream is to expedite and personalise drug development. And here's the dot connectors again. The multidisciplinary research project was funded by the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, DARPA, at the Wyss Institute. Since when have DARPA done anything but use technology for weaponization against the people? Like, where's Congress for their accountability to this? That was a rhetorical question. Because they're just, Congress is a group of apes. Kind of fitting, really. Now, several authors on both studies, including Professor Ingber and Professor Parker, are employees and also hold equity in Emulate Inc., a company that was spun out of the Wyss Institute to commercially develop organ chip technology, the university said in a statement on Monday. Emulate Inc. indeed. What are they emulating? Humans? This is a form of cloning. Let's get it right. And leading to their ultimate goal of transhumanism. Mini-me's, fake blood, organs on a chip, all leads to their desires for an all-bot world. And the reality is these people are egotistic psychopaths pretending to be God. Where is the regulation on this research? Who oversights it? And the reality is we need a full moratorium on all research centres globally. Because the shit these psychopaths are up to these days is beyond evil. Beyond evil.